The August sun beat down on NY 32, a dusty ribbon of asphalt slicing through the quiet outskirts of Saugerties, New York. Heat shimmered off the road, and the air was thick with the scent of gasoline and wildflowers. Sarah Johnson, a 14-year-old black freshman at Saugerties High School, trudged along the shoulder, her sneakers kicking up tiny clouds of gravel. Her faded school uniform clung to her skin, and her old backpack, straps frayed but neatly patched, swayed with each step. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her dark eyes were sharp, scanning the world with a quiet intensity. In her bag, nestled among math books and pencils, was a small mechanic's toolkit, a gift from her uncle James Carter, the only mechanic in town who taught her to hear an engine's heartbeat. Sarah's fingers brushed the ruby ring on her left hand, a keepsake she'd worn since she was little. Its deep red stone catching the sunlight like a secret waiting to be told. Ahead, near a Sunoco gas station, a sleek Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 sat stalled, its black hood popped open, steam curling from the engine like a dragon's breath. A man in a crisp Italian suit paced beside it, his polished shoes glinting as he barked into his phone. "I don't care about the board meeting, Tom. I'm stuck on the NY 32 with a dead car and the nearest tow is 2 hours out. Fix this." His voice, sharp and commanding, carried over the hum of cicadas. This was Michael Bennett, a 30-year-old Manhattan real estate heir, the only son of Richard Bennett, whose empire dominated New York's skyline. Michael's jaw was tight, his blue eyes flashing with irritation as he shoved the phone into his pocket and glared at the engine, as if sheer will could make it roar again. Sarah slowed, her gaze flicking to the Mustang. She recognized the model instantly, twin-turbo, prone to cooling system issues if not handled right. The steam wasn't smoke, it was a telltale sign of a coolant leak. Her uncle's words echoed in her mind. If you see a car struggling and you know how to help, don't wait for permission. Knowing and not acting is a waste. She tightened her backpack straps, took a deep breath, and stepped forward, her voice steady but polite. "Sir, your car's leaking coolant down there. I can take a look if you want." Michael's head snapped up, his expression a mix of surprise and skepticism. He squinted at Sarah, taking in her worn sneakers and wrinkled uniform. "Kid, this isn't some junker you tinker with in shop class," he said dismissively, his tone clipped. "It's a high-end Shelby. Run along, it's getting late." Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't flinch. She'd heard that tone before. Teachers who overlooked her, classmates who ignored her. It stung, but it never stopped her. "I know a bit about cars," she said calmly, her voice carrying a quiet confidence. "Looks like a hose issue. I can check it, or you're waiting hours for a tow." Michael chuckled, not cruelly, but with the arrogance of someone used to being in charge. "You fix this?" He waved a hand at the Mustang. "Fine, knock yourself out, but don't break anything." Sarah ignored the jab, opening her backpack and pulling out her toolkit, its cloth wrap worn but clean. She knelt by the engine, her hands moving with practiced ease, eyes narrowing as she traced the coolant trail. The ruby ring glinted as she worked, catching Michael's eye. His smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. That ring, its intricate crest, the deep red stone, felt familiar, like a ghost from a past he'd buried. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, his voice suddenly low, intense. Sarah glanced up, her brow furrowing. It's just mine," she said cautiously, sensing his shift. She turned back to the engine, her fingers deftly probing the hoses. Michael watched, his earlier dismissal wavering as she worked with a precision that belied her age. Minutes later, she tightened a clamp, wiped her hands on a rag, and stood. "Try it now," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. Michael hesitated, then slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The Mustang roared to life, smooth and powerful. He stared at Sarah, his arrogance cracking into reluctant respect. "Not bad, kid," he muttered, almost to himself. As Sarah packed her tools, Michael's phone buzzed. He stepped away, answering in a hushed tone. "Yes, father, it's fixed. Some girl. No, I don't know her. But she had a ring. Your crest." On the other end, Richard Bennett, a 60-year-old tycoon whose empire was built on secrets, froze in his Empire State Building office. His voice was cold, calculating. "Find out who she is. We can't have loose ends from Kingston resurfacing." He hung up, already dialing an aide. "Tail the girl on NY 32. Make it look like an accident if you have to." Sarah, oblivious to the call, slung her backpack over her shoulder and started walking home along New York 32. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the road. A black sedan crept behind her, its engine purring softly. Sarah's instincts prickled. She quickened her pace, her heart thudding. The car accelerated, veering close, its tires screeching as it swerved toward her. She dove onto the grassy shoulder, rolling as the sedan sped past, its driver cursing under his breath. Sarah scrambled to her feet, breathless, her ruby ring glinting as she clutched her bag. She didn't see the driver's face. Didn't know why they'd come so close. But as she dusted herself off and kept walking, her jaw set with determination, one thing was clear. Her small act of kindness had just set something bigger in motion. Michael watched her go, the Mustang's engine idling. He couldn't shake the image of that ring. It wasn't just a trinket. It was a key to a past he'd tried to forget, a promise he'd broken. As he drove toward Manhattan, the weight of it settled in his chest, a mix of guilt and curiosity. Sarah, meanwhile, glanced back at the road, her heart still racing from the near miss. She didn't know it yet, but that ring and the man she'd just helped were about to pull her into a storm that could topple an empire. At home, her Uncle James would be waiting, ready to hear about her day, and the strange encounter that was only the beginning. A twilight sky over Saugerties, New York, glowed a soft orange as Sarah Johnson pushed open the creaky gate to her modest home at 400 Main Street. Her heart still raced from the black sedan that had nearly run her down on NY 32 an hour earlier. But she shoved the fear aside, focusing on the familiar scent of her adoptive mother's cooking, collard greens and cornbread, wafting from the kitchen. The small clapboard house, with its chipped paint and well-tended flower beds, was a haven for Sarah, a 14-year-old black freshman whose life had been shaped by love and loss. Her worn backpack thudded onto the porch, and she touched the ruby ring on her finger, its weight a quiet comfort after the strange encounter with Michael Bennett and his Mustang. Inside, Linda Carter, her 45-year-old adoptive mother, hummed an old gospel tune, her hands deftly stirring a pot. Linda's face, lined with years of worry, but warm with kindness, lit up as Sarah entered. "Long day, baby?" she asked softly, her voice carrying the gentle cadence of someone who'd soothed countless fears. "Kinda," Sarah replied, hesitating. She wanted to tell Linda about the car, about Michael's odd reaction to her ring, but the words stuck. Instead, she sank into a chair, her mind drifting to her past. Sarah had been orphaned as a toddler, her birth parents a mystery she'd stopped chasing. Linda, a former nurse with a heart as big as the Catskills, had adopted her at 5, raising her in this tight-knit Saugerties community. Linda's brother, James Carter, a 40-year-old mechanic, was Sarah's rock. At his garage, Catskill Auto Repair on 322 Main Street in Catskill, he'd taught her to wrench and listen to engines like they were telling stories. "Hands dirty, heart clean," he'd say, his oil-stained fingers ruffling her hair. Those lessons had fueled Sarah's pride, but they couldn't erase her fear of being invisible. At school, where her straight A's in math and shop class went unnoticed, or in a world that often overlooked girls like her. The memory of James's garage pulled Sarah back to a summer day 2 years ago. She was 12, perched on a stool in the cluttered shop, the air thick with grease and gasoline. A beat-up Chevy pickup sat on the lift, its owner, Mr. Jenkins, a local farmer, fretting about missing market day. James, his broad shoulders hunched over the engine, had winked at Sarah. "Come on, kiddo, what's this one saying?" Sarah had leaned in, her ear tuned to the sputter. "Fuel pump's clogged," she'd said, confidently. James handed her a wrench, letting her take the lead. When the truck roared back to life, Mr. Jenkins clapped her shoulder, grinning. "You're a wizard, Sarah." That moment, and countless others, had built her resilience, but it also sharpened her ache to be seen beyond her small town. Back in the present, Linda set a plate before Sarah, her eyes narrowing. "You're quiet tonight," she said, concerned. "Something happen?" Sarah shrugged, picking at her food. "Just helped a guy with his car. Fancy Mustang. He was kinda rude at first." Linda's brow furrowed, but before she could press, the front door swung open, and James strode in, his work boots clomping. His warm grin faded as he caught Sarah's mood. "What's up, champ?" he asked, plopping down beside her. Sarah forced a smile. "Nothing, Uncle James, just tired." But her voice wavered, and James exchanged a glance with Linda, who nodded subtly. They knew Sarah's strength, but also her habit of bottling up her fears. Across town, at Catskill Auto Repair, a shadow moved in the dark. Richard Bennett, still reeling from Michael's call about the ruby-ringed girl, had dispatched an aide, a wiry man named Vince, to snoop around. Richard's paranoia, rooted in secrets buried in Kingston, drove him to target Sarah's confidence. "Find her toolkit," he'd ordered Vince. "Take it, shake her up." The garage's lot was quiet, the neon sign flickering off. Vince jimmied the side door, slipping inside, his flashlight sweeping over toolboxes and oil cans. He spotted Sarah's kit, its cloth wrap distinct, on a workbench. But as he reached for it, a floodlight snapped on, and James's voice boomed. "Hey, what the hell you doing?" Vince froze, then bolted, tripping over a tire as James charged after him. The aide vanished into the night, leaving James panting, his fists clenched. He grabbed the toolkit, locking it in his truck, his protective instincts flaring. Whoever this was, they were after Sarah. At Saugerties High School the next morning, Sarah sat in shop class, her hands fiddling with a carburetor under the watchful eye of Mr. Daniel Torres, her 35-year-old teacher. Daniel, a former mechanic with a knack for spotting talent, had always seen Sarah's potential. "Nice work, Johnson," he said warmly, adjusting his glasses. "You've got a gift." Sarah's cheeks warmed, but her mind was elsewhere, on Michael's stare, the sedan's screech. Emma Davis, her best friend and a 14-year-old cheerleader with a quick wit, slid onto the stool beside her. "Yo, Sarah, you look like you saw a ghost," Emma teased, her ponytail bouncing. "Spill it." Sarah hesitated, then whispered, "Some guy's car broke down yesterday. I fixed it, but he got weird about my ring." Emma's eyes widened. "Weird? How? Like creepy weird or rich guy weird?" Sarah laughed despite herself. "Rich guy weird. And then a car almost hit me after." Emma's jaw dropped, but Daniel overheard, his expression darkening. "You okay?" he asked, concerned. Sarah nodded, but the weight of the day before lingered. As class ended, Emma looped her arm through Sarah's, her voice firm. "We're figuring this out, girl. You're not invisible to me." Sarah squeezed her hand, grateful for the friend who always had her back. At home that evening, Linda sat Sarah down, her voice soft but probing. "I know you're holding something back, baby. That ring, it's always meant something to you. What happened yesterday?" Sarah's fingers traced the ruby, her throat tight. "I don't know, Mama, but it's not just a ring." Linda's eyes flickered with a shadow of fear, a hint of her secretive past as a nurse at a foster home surfacing. She hugged Sarah tightly, whispering, "We'll face it together." As Sarah headed to bed, Her mind churned with questions about the ring, Michael, and the car that had come too close. Tomorrow, she'd return to James's garage, where answers and dangers might be waiting. A late afternoon sun cast long shadows across NY 32 near Saugerties, New York, where Sarah Johnson knelt beside the steaming Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500. The air was thick with the tang of coolant and gasoline, and her worn backpack lay open beside her, revealing a neatly wrapped toolkit, her Uncle James Carter's gift. Sarah, a 14-year-old black freshman at Saugerties High School, moved with quiet precision. Her dark eyes focused on the engine's leaking hose. Her ruby ring, a deep red stone etched with an unfamiliar crest, glinted as she tightened a clamp, oblivious to the weight of its history. Nearby, Michael Bennett, a 30-year-old Manhattan real estate heir, leaned against the car, his tailored suit slightly rumpled. His earlier skepticism had softened, replaced by a grudging curiosity as he watched Sarah work. The memory of her ring, its intricate design hauntingly familiar, gnawed at him, stirring the guilt he'd buried for years. "Almost done," Sarah said confidently, her voice steady despite the heat. She wiped sweat from her brow, leaving a streak of grease on her cheek. Michael nodded, his blue eyes flicking to the ring again. "You're good at this," he admitted, his tone less sharp than before. "Where'd you learn?" Sarah glanced up, her expression guarded. "My Uncle James. He's got a garage in Catskill. Says cars talk if you listen." Michael's lips twitched, almost a smile. Smart guy. But his gaze lingered on the ring, and Sarah noticed, her fingers pausing. "You keep staring at my ring," she said cautiously, standing to face him. "Why?" Michael hesitated, his jaw tightening. "It's unusual," he said evasively, his voice low. "Where'd you get it?" Sarah's brow furrowed, sensing his unease. "It's just something I've always had," she replied, her tone firm, but curious. "Why's it matter?" Before Michael could answer, the engine's cooling fan whirred, and Sarah gestured to the driver's seat. "Start it up." Michael slid behind the wheel, turning the key. The Mustang roared to life, its rumble smooth and powerful. Sarah packed her tools, satisfaction flickering across her face. But Michael's expression was distant, his mind elsewhere. Back to a summer day, 15 years ago, at the Hudson Valley Children's Home in Kingston, New York. In his memory, a 15-year-old Michael sat on a rickety porch at the foster home, a sprawling brick building at 1 Albany Avenue, its lawn dotted with kids playing under a nurse's watchful eye. He'd been dragged there by his mother, a philanthropist whose charity masked his father Richard Bennett's darker dealings. A girl, Emily, no older than 7, had approached him, her eyes wide with hope. "You're rich, right? Can you get me a family?" she'd asked, her voice small. Michael, awkward but kind, had slipped a ruby ring from his finger, a Bennett family heirloom, and pressed it into her palm. "Keep this," he'd said earnestly. "I'll come back for you. Promise." But he never did, swept away by his father's world of wealth and power. The memory hit like a punch, and Michael gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Was Sarah? Emily? Across the state, in a sleek office atop the Empire State Building, Richard Bennett, a 60-year-old tycoon with a predator's instinct, paced before a wall of monitors. Michael's call about the ring had ignited his paranoia, memories of the Hudson Valley Children's Home, a front for his Project Gemini, flooding back. "A girl with my crest?" he muttered, his voice cold. He dialed a private investigator, a gruff man named Carl. Dig into a Sarah Johnson from Saugerties. Adoption records, foster history, everything. Wipe any trace of her if you find it. Carl, working from a dimly lit Brooklyn basement, hacked into Saugerties' adoption database, but hit a wall. Linda Carter, Sarah's adoptive mother, had encrypted her files years ago, a precaution from her days as a nurse. Carl cursed, reporting the failure to Richard, who slammed his fist on the desk. "Keep trying," he snarled, his fear of loose ends growing. Back on NY32, Sarah slung her backpack over her shoulder, the Mustang now purring. Michael stepped out, his demeanor softer but tense. "Thanks, kid," he said, slipping her a $20 bill. Sarah shook her head, pride stiffening her spine. "I don't need it, just glad it's fixed." Michael's eyes softened, but he didn't push. As Sarah turned to leave, her toolkit shifted, and a folded note slipped out. Unnoticed by her, but catching Michael's eye, he picked it up, reading a cryptic line in Linda's handwriting. "Keep the ring safe, Sarah. It's your truth." He handed it back, his voice urgent. "This yours?" Sarah's eyes widened, confusion flickering. "Yeah, I've never seen it before." She tucked it away, her mind racing. Michael watched her walk towards Saugerties, the note and ring swirling in his thoughts. He climbed into the Mustang, driving toward Manhattan's 1 his penthouse at 250 West 34th Street. The city's skyline loomed, a glittering cage of his father's making. In his penthouse, surrounded by glass walls and modern art, Michael poured a whiskey, the ring's image burning in his mind. He needed answers about Emily, about Sarah, about the promise he'd broken. His mother's old belongings, stored in a safe, might hold clues. As he resolved to search then, his phone buzzed with a text from his fiancée, Rachel Kim. "Board meeting's a mess. Your dad's hiding something. Call me." Michael's gut twisted, the ring's mystery pulling him deeper. Sarah, nearing home, clutched the note, her heart pounding. The stranger's reaction, the note, the near miss on New York 32, it all felt connected. She'd tell James and Emma tomorrow, maybe even Mr. Torres. The ruby ring, warm against her skin, wasn't just a keepsake anymore. It was a key, and she was determined to find the lock it opened, no matter the danger lurking in the shadows of Richard Bennett's empire. The Manhattan skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Michael Bennett's penthouse at 250 West 34th Street. But the 30-year-old real estate heir barely noticed. It was late, the city's pulse a distant hum, and Michael stood in his sleek living room, a whiskey glass in hand, his mind tangled with the ruby ring Sarah Johnson wore on NY32. The cryptic note in her toolkit, "Keep the ring safe, Sarah. It's your truth," echoed in his head, stirring memories of a promise he'd made to a girl named Emily at the Hudson Valley Children's Home. His mother's belongings, stored in a safe since her death 5 years ago, might hold answers. Michael set the glass down, his jaw tight, and moved to the study where a steel safe was hidden behind a Warhol print. His fingers trembled as he punched in the code, the lock clicking open to reveal a velvet box, a stack of letters, and a sealed envelope marked private. Inside the envelope, Michael found a faded Polaroid of a young girl, Emily, her dark eyes bright with hope, clutching the ruby ring he'd given her. His breath caught, guilt clawing at him. The girl's face mirrored Sarah's, though younger, softer. Beneath the photo was a document labeled Hudson Valley Acquisition, its pages yellowed, but chillingly clear. It detailed Richard Bennett's closure of the Kingston foster home to cover up Project Gemini, a scheme to groom children, orphans like Emily, for corporate succession experiments, ensuring loyal heirs for Bennett Enterprises. The words test subjects and genetic profiling made Michael's stomach churn. His father, the 60-year-old tycoon whose office loomed in the Empire State Building at 355th Avenue, had built an empire on secrets darker than Michael ever imagined. "What the hell, Dad?" he muttered hoarsely, his voice breaking in the silent room. Across the Hudson in Saugerties, Sarah Johnson sat in her high school's shop class at 100 Washington Avenue, unaware of the storm brewing. Her best friend Emma Davis, a 14-year-old cheerleader with a sharp tongue, nudged her during a break. "You still thinking about that rich guy in your ring?" Emma asked playfully, her ponytail swinging. Sarah nodded, her fingers tracing the ruby ring's crest. He acted like it was a big deal, she said quietly, her voice tinged with unease. And that note, it's weird, Emma. Before Emma could reply, a janitor, tipped off by Richard's aide, slipped into the locker room during class. Richard, desperate to discredit Sarah after his investigators' failed hack, had ordered a small bag of drugs planted in her locker to paint her as a delinquent. The janitor, a nervous man named Eddie, fumbled the lock, his hands shaking. But Emma, grabbing her gym bag, spotted him. "Hey, what are you doing?" she shouted, her voice sharp. Eddie bolted, leaving the bag behind. Emma grabbed it, her eyes wide, and ran to Mr. Daniel Torres, their shop teacher. Daniel, a 35-year-old former mechanic with a calm demeanor, listened as Emma explained, his face hardening. "This isn't Sarah's," he said firmly, inspecting the bag. "Someone's setting her up." He disposed of it discreetly, his protective instincts kicking in. "Don't tell her yet," he told Emma, his voice low. "She's got enough on her mind." Emma nodded, her loyalty to Sarah fierce. "Whoever did this is going to regret it," she muttered, her fists clenched. Back in class, Sarah sensed Emma's tension, but stayed focused, her mind on the note and Michael's strange reaction, oblivious to the sabotage she'd narrowly escaped. In Manhattan, Michael's phone buzzed, pulling him from the document's horrors. It was Rachel Kim, his 28-year-old fiancé and a lawyer at Bennett Enterprises. "Michael, you okay?" she asked, her voice warm but edged with worry. "The board meeting was a circus. Your dad's pushing the Hudson Yards deal, but he's cagey about the funding. I think he's hiding something." Michael's grip tightened on the phone, the document burning in his hand. "Rachel, I found something," he said urgently, his voice low. "Mom's stuff. It's about the foster home in Kingston. Dad did something awful." Rachel's breath hitched. "What kind of awful?" she pressed, her tone sharp. Michael hesitated, guilt and fear warring within him. "I think Sarah, the girl from Saugerties, she's Emily, the girl I left behind." Rachel went silent, then said softly, "We need to talk, in person, tomorrow." Michael agreed, his mind racing. Rachel's suspicion of Richard's corruption, honed by years navigating his corporate games, made her a potential ally. But he wasn't ready to share everything, not yet. He sank into a chair, the Polaroid in his hand, Emily's face staring back. He'd abandoned her, let his father's world harden him, and now Sarah, maybe Emily, was in danger because of it. The weight of his failure pressed down, but so did a flicker of resolve. He'd find out the truth, no matter what it cost. At the Empire State Building, Richard Bennett stared out at the city, his face a mask of control. The failed hack on Sarah's records had rattled him, and now his aide reported the locker plan's collapse. "Incompetent fools," he growled, his voice icy. He dialed another contact, his tone lethal. Double down on the girl, find her weaknesses. His paranoia, rooted in Project Gemini's secrets, drove him to see Sarah as a threat, a loose end that could unravel his empire. But her allies, fierce and unnoticed, were already closing ranks. In Saugerties, Sarah lay in bed at 400 Main Street, the cryptic note beside her. She'd told her Uncle James and Emma about it, and tomorrow she'd ask Mr. Torres for advice. The ring, the note, the near miss on NY32, they were pieces of a puzzle she was determined to solve. As she drifted to sleep, her resolve mirrored Michael's, two lives converging on a truth buried in the shadows of Richard's sins. The answers lay closer than either realized, waiting in the Catskill garage where Sarah's investigation would soon ignite. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of Catskill Auto Repair at 322 Main Street, Catskill, New York, casting a warm glow over the cluttered garage. Sarah Johnson, a 14-year-old black freshman, stood beside a rusted Pontiac, her worn toolkit open on the workbench. Her ruby ring, engraved with a mysterious crest, caught the light as she tightened a bolt, her mind racing. The cryptic note from her adoptive mother, Linda, Keep the ring safe, Sarah. It's your truth, and Michael Bennett's odd reaction to it on NY32 weighed heavily. Sarah's heart thudded with a mix of curiosity and fear. She'd told her Uncle James Carter about the note last night, and his protective frown had only deepened her resolve to uncover the truth. Today, she'd enlist her allies, her best friend Emma Davis and shop teacher Daniel Torres, to dig deeper. At Saugerties High School, 100 Washington Avenue, Sarah found Emma in the library during lunch, the hum of fluorescent lights blending with the chatter of students. Emma, a 14-year-old cheerleader with a quick wit, was flipping through a magazine, her ponytail bouncing as she looked up. "Yo, Sarah, you look like you're solving a crime," she teased, her eyes sparkling. Sarah slid into the seat beside her, her voice low but urgent. "That note, Emma, and the guy with the Mustang, he freaked out about my ring. I think it's connected to something big." Emma's grin faded, her loyalty kicking in. "Okay, spill, what's the plan?" Sarah hesitated, then whispered, "I want to check Uncle James's garage. He's got old boxes from Mama's nursing days. Maybe there's something about the ring." Emma nodded, her tone firm. "I'm in, but we need backup. Mr. Torres, he's smart and he's got your back." Sarah agreed, and after school they met Daniel Torres in his shop classroom, the air thick with the scent of motor oil. Daniel, a 35-year-old former mechanic with a steady gaze, listened as Sarah recounted the Mustang incident, the note, and the near miss on Northwest 32. "Sounds like trouble," he said gravely, adjusting his glasses. "But you're not alone, Sarah. Let's see what we can find." His mentorship, a quiet anchor for Sarah, gave her courage. The trio headed to James's garage, where the Pontiac now sat gleaming, a testament to Sarah's skill. James, a 40-year-old mechanic with a warm smile, greeted them, his oil-stained hands wiping on a rag. "What's this, a detective squad?" he joked, but his eyes softened at Sarah's determined look. In the garage's back corner, among stacks of tires and old manuals, Sarah spotted a dusty box labeled Linda's Records. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, revealing faded hospital files and a small metal canister. Emma, peering over her shoulder, gasped, "Is that a microfilm?" Daniel took it, his voice calm but excited. "Looks like it. Let's get this to the school library. They've got a reader." Back at Saugerties High, the microfilm flickered on the ancient machine, revealing a document titled Project Gemini, Twin Selection. Sarah's breath caught as she read, "Two girls, Emily and Olivia, born 2011, separated at Hudson Valley Children's Home. Emily was marked relocated, Olivia terminated." A grainy photo showed a young Sarah, Emily, wearing the ruby ring. "That's me," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm Emily, and Olivia, my twin, she's gone?" Emma squeezed her hand, her voice fierce. "You're not alone, Sarah. We'll figure this out." Daniel's jaw tightened, his protective streak flaring. "This Project Gemini, it's sick. Whoever's behind it doesn't want you knowing." Sarah's eyes burned with tears, but her fear hardened into determination. "I need to know why," she said, her voice steady. The microfilm mentioned a hospital record, hinting Olivia might have survived, a thread Sarah clung to, her heart pounding with hope and dread. Meanwhile, Richard Bennett, in his Empire State Building office, grew desperate. The failed drug plant in Sarah's locker had enraged him, and now he hired a thug, a burly man named Ray, to vandalize James's garage, hoping to scare Sarah into silence. That night, Ray crept into Catskill Auto Repair, smashing tools and spray painting threats on the walls. But James, alerted by a motion sensor, arrived with Emma, who'd been helping with inventory. "Get out!" James roared, his voice thunderous. Ray fled, leaving a mess, But James and Emma worked swiftly, cleaning up before Sarah arrived the next day. "She's been through enough," James said gruffly, his love for Sarah clear. Emma nodded, her humor surfacing. "Yeah, let's keep her focused on kicking butt, not cleaning up this crap." At school, Sarah sat in the library, the microfilm's revelations swirling in her mind. Emma's humor lightened the weight, her quips about evil tycoons drawing a small smile. Daniel, poring over the hospital record, offered quiet wisdom. "This record's incomplete, Sarah. Olivia might be out there. Keep looking." His mentorship grounded her, a reminder of her strength. Sarah's fear, of her past, of Richard's unseen reach, battled her resolve, but she chose to fight. "I'm not stopping," she said fiercely, her ring glinting like a beacon. She'd confront Michael, find Olivia, and expose the truth, no matter the cost. In Manhattan, Michael Bennett, haunted by the Project Gemini document, prepared to meet Rachel Kim, his fiancée, who suspected Richard's corruption. Their paths were converging with Sarah's, a collision that would ignite in a Hudson cafe. Sarah, unaware of Michael's discoveries, left the library with Emma and Daniel, her heart set on answers. The garage, her safe haven, held more secrets, and her allies, fierce, funny, and steadfast, would stand by her as the shadows of Richard's empire closed in. The cozy hum of a cafe at 407 Warren Street in Hudson, New York, enveloped Sarah Johnson as she sat nervously at a corner table, her ruby ring glinting under the soft light. The scent of fresh coffee and pastries mingled with her anticipation. It was a crisp September afternoon in 2025, and Sarah, a 14-year-old black freshman, clutched a crumpled photo from the microfilm she'd found in her Uncle James's garage. A grainy image of herself as Emily, with a twin, Olivia, presumed dead. The revelation of her true identity had shaken her, but a hospital record hinting at Olivia's survival had fueled her hope. Michael Bennett, the 30-year-old real estate heir she'd met on NY 32, had called yesterday, his voice urgent. "I found someone you need to meet," he'd said. "She's family." Sarah's heart raced as the cafe door chimed, and a woman entered. Rachel Kim, Michael's fiancée, her sharp eyes softening as they met Sarah's. Rachel, a 28-year-old lawyer at Bennett Enterprises, slid into the seat across from Sarah, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to Sarah's faded hoodie. Michael followed, his expression a mix of guilt and relief. "Sarah," he said gently, "this is Rachel Kim, or Olivia Bennett, your twin." Sarah's breath hitched, her eyes locking onto Rachel's. The resemblance was uncanny. Same cheekbones, same deep brown eyes. Though Rachel's carried a hardness Sarah hadn't yet earned. "Is it true?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Rachel nodded, her smile warm but tinged with pain. "I faked my death to escape our father, Richard Bennett. I never knew you were out there, Emily." Sarah's throat tightened at her old name. "It's Sarah now," she said softly. "But you're really her, Olivia?" Rachel reached across, squeezing her hand. "I am, and I'm so sorry we were apart." Their reunion unfolded over shared memories, fragments of a childhood at Hudson Valley Children's Home. "You used to hum this tune," Rachel said, her voice wistful, "when we'd sneak cookies from the kitchen." Sarah's eyes widened. "I still do," she whispered, humming a faint melody. Laughter broke the tension, but Sarah's joy was laced with fear. "Why'd they separate us?" she asked, her voice low. Rachel's jaw tightened. Project Gemini. Richard used kids like us to build his empire, picking perfect heirs. "I got out, but you," she trailed off, guilt flashing in her eyes. Michael, silent until now, spoke up, his voice heavy. "I'm part of this, Sarah. I gave you that ring as a kid, promised to come back. I failed you." Sarah's gaze softened, sensing his remorse. "You're here now," she said firmly, her resilience shining. In Saugerties, at Sarah's home on 400 Main Street, Richard Bennett's paranoia drove another scheme. His failed vandalism of James's garage had only sharpened his resolve to silence Sarah. He hired a tech, a wiry man named Leo, to bug her house, hoping to monitor her plans. Leo crept into the Carters' backyard at dusk, planting a tiny device under a windowsill. But James, ever vigilant, had installed security cameras after the garage break-in. The footage caught Leo's face, and Linda Carter, Sarah's 45-year-old adoptive mother, spotted it on her phone. "Not in my house," Linda muttered, her nurse's calm masking her fury. She removed the bug, tossing it into a drawer, and called James. "Someone's after Sarah," she said, her voice tight. James's protective growl came through. "I'm on it, sis. She's safe with us." Back at the cafe, Rachel laid out her plan, her lawyer's precision cutting through the emotion. "Richard's untouchable unless we expose Project Gemini. I've got access to his files at Bennett Enterprises, but we need more. Hospital records, witness accounts." Sarah nodded, her determination flaring. "I've got Emma and Mr. Torres helping. They found the microfilm." Michael, his guilt now afire, added, "I've got documents from my mom's safe. We can do this." Their alliance solidified, a shared mission binding them. As they spoke, Rachel's phone buzzed. A message from Noah Lee, a 28-year-old journalist and former foster child. "Heard about Gemini," it read. "I've got evidence. Meet soon?" Rachel showed it to Sarah, her eyes bright. "Another ally," she said, her voice hopeful. The reunion stretched into the evening. Sarah and Rachel bonding over small things, favorite colors, old fears, build in a sisterly bond. Sarah's laughter, rare since the NY32 incident, felt like a victory. But her mind flickered to the dangers. The car, the garage, now this. "Richard's not going to stop, is he?" she asked, her voice steady but scared. Rachel's gaze hardened. "No, but neither will we." Michael, watching the sisters, felt his redemption taking shape. He'd failed Emily once, but he wouldn't fail Sarah and Rachel now. In Manhattan, Michael's penthouse at 1 Penn 1 became their war room. Rachel spread out files, her insider knowledge of Richard's empire a weapon. Sarah, though young, brought ingenuity, sketching connections between the microfilm and Michael's documents. The cafe meeting had lit a spark, and Noah's message promised more fuel. But in Saugerties, Linda and James kept watch, their love for Sarah a shield against Richard's schemes. Sarah, heading home, felt the ruby ring's weight, no longer just a mystery, but a link to her sister. Tomorrow, they'd meet Noah, building a case that could topple an empire. The fight was just beginning, and Sarah's heart, torn between joy and fear, built with a fierce resolve. The Catskill Community Hub at 439 Main Street, Catskill, New York, buzzed with purpose on a chilly October morning in 2025. Sarah Johnson, a 14-year-old black freshman, sat at a worn table in the Hub's meeting room, her ruby ring glinting as she sorted through a stack of hospital records. The microfilm from her Uncle James's garage, Michael Bennett's documents, and Rachel Kim's pilfered Bennett Enterprises emails lay spread out. Each piece a shard of Richard Bennett's Project Gemini, a scheme exploiting foster children for corporate succession. Sarah's twin, Rachel, a 28-year-old lawyer, paced nearby, her sharp eyes scanning a legal pad. Michael, the 30-year-old heir-turned-ally, typed furiously on a laptop, his guilt now a driving force. Noah Lee, a 28-year-old journalist and former foster child, leaned against the wall, his notebook filled with leads. The teen's mission, to expose Richard's crimes, was gaining momentum, but Sarah's heart still trembled from her reunion with Rachel and the dangers closing in. "This email's gold," Rachel said excitedly, tapping a printout. Richard approved funds for Gemini oversight in 2011, the year we were separated. Sarah nodded, her voice steady but soft. "The microfilm said I was relocated. That's when Mama, Linda, adopted me. Her adoptive mother's name brought a pang, and she glanced at Linda Carter, who sat quietly, her 45-year-old face etched with worry. Linda had joined them today. Her nurses calm, hiding a secret she'd carried for years. "Sarah," Linda said hesitantly, her voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." The room stilled, all eyes on her. "When I worked at Hudson Valley Children's Home, I overheard Richard's men planning to take you, Emily, away. I got you out first, adopted you to keep you safe." Sarah's breath caught, tears pricking her eyes. "You saved me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Linda nodded, her own eyes wet. "I couldn't let them have you." Sarah reached for Linda's hand, their bond deepening. Noah, his journalist's instincts sharp, jotted down notes. "That's a witness statement," he said firmly, his voice tinged with admiration. "Linda, you're a hero." Michael looked up, his expression heavy. "My father did this," he said, his voice raw. "I'll make it right." Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder, her tone resolute. "We will, together." The team's dynamics, Sarah's ingenuity, Rachel's legal expertise, Noah's tenacity, and Michael's insider knowledge meshed like gears in one of Sarah's engines, each piece vital. Noah flipped open his laptop, revealing hacked hospital records. "These show Olivia, Rachel, was marked terminated, but a nurse's log suggests she was smuggled out," he said, his voice intense. "It's enough to prove Richard lied." In Brooklyn, at a law firm on 180 Livingston Street, Rachel met with a contact to authenticate the emails, her lawyer's precision ensuring their case was airtight. Sarah, back at the hub, cross-referenced the microfilm with Noah's records, her mechanical mind spotting patterns. "Look," she said eagerly, pointing to a date. "The day they closed the foster home matches Richard's acquisition deal." Noah grinned, his idealism infectious. "Kid, you're a natural." Their camaraderie, forged in the fight, warmed the room, but danger loomed. Richard, in his Empire State Building office, sensed the net tightening. Desperate, he called Noah, offering a bribe. "Drop the story, Lee," Richard growled, his voice icy. "Name your price." Noah, recording the call, played it cool. "I'll think about it," he said, his tone neutral, hanging up to share the audio with the teen. The recording electrified the hub. "He's scared," Rachel said, her voice triumphant. "This is admissible evidence." Sarah's eyes sparkled with hope, but fear lingered. "He keeps coming after me," she said quietly, her mind flashing to the car on NY 32, the garage vandalism, the bug at home. Linda squeezed her shoulder, her voice fierce. "He won't touch you, baby. Not while we're here." James Carter, Sarah's uncle, poked his head in, his mechanic's hands still greasy. "Everything okay?" he asked, his protective gaze scanning the room. Sarah nodded, drawing strength from her family. Noah, pacing, hinted at a larger threat. "Richard's not alone," he said cautiously. "Some of these emails mention partners, a network maybe." The words hung heavy, a shadow over their progress. At the Brooklyn firm, Rachel secured a safe deposit for their evidence, her legal mind anticipating Richard's counterattacks. Back in Catskill, Sarah and Noah pored over a new lead, a foster child's testimony about tests at the home, corroborating Project Gemini. Michael, wrestling with his family's legacy, vowed to fund their efforts, his voice determined. "No more hiding," he said, his eyes on Sarah. The team's unity, a blend of grit and heart, propelled them forward. But Sarah felt the weight of their fight. At home that night, she sat with Linda, her voice small. "What if we can't stop him?" Linda hugged her tightly, her voice warm. "You're stronger than he'll ever be, Sarah." A hub became their fortress, each member a pillar. Sarah's ingenuity shone as she organized the evidence, Rachel's expertise framed their legal strategy, and Noah's tenacity uncovered new leads. Michael's redemption grew, his loyalty to Sarah and Rachel unwavering. But Richard's bribe, now a weapon against him, signaled his desperation. The team prepared for a public confrontation, their evidence a ticking bomb. Sarah, clutching her ring, felt her past, Emily's past, fuel her resolve. The Catskill Community Hub, once a dream, was now a battleground, and their next move, a press conference at 1 Penn 1, would shake Richard's empire to its core. The grand event hall at 1 Penn 1, 250 West 34th Street, New York City, pulsed with anticipation on a crisp November evening in 2025. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over a sea of reporters, investors, and Manhattan elites gathered for Bennett Enterprises' Hudson Yards project launch. Sarah Johnson, a 14-year-old black freshman, stood backstage, her ruby ring gleaming against her trembling fingers. Beside her, Rachel Kim, her 28-year-old twin and a lawyer, adjusted her blazer, her eyes fierce with purpose. Michael Bennett, the 30-year-old heir, clutched a folder of evidence, emails, microfilms, hospital records, his face set with resolve. Noah Lee, a 28-year-old journalist, monitored a laptop, ensuring their live broadcast would reach millions. The team had spent weeks at the Catskill Community Hub building an airtight case against Richard Bennett's Project Gemini, a scheme exploiting foster children. Tonight, they'd expose him, but Sarah's heart pounded with fear and hope. On stage, Richard Bennett, the 60-year-old tycoon, addressed the crowd, his voice smooth, as he touted the Hudson Yards deal. "A new era for New York," he declared, his tailored suit masking his ruthlessness. Backstage, Sarah whispered to Rachel, her voice shaky, "What if they don't believe us?" Rachel squeezed her hand, her tone steady. "They will. You're stronger than you know." Michael nodded, his guilt over abandoning Sarah, once Emily, now afire. "We've got the truth," he said firmly. Noah signaled from his laptop, his voice urgent. "Feed's live. We're on in 60 seconds." The plan was simple. Interrupt Richard's speech, present the ruby rings, and unveil Project Gemini's horrors, with Noah's backup feed ensuring no sabotage could stop them. As Richard boasted about community impact, Michael stepped onto the stage, his presence silencing the crowd. "I'm Michael Bennett," he said, his voice clear, "and I'm here to tell you the truth about my father." Gasps rippled through the hall. Richard's smile froze, his eyes narrowing. Sarah and Rachel followed, each holding up their ruby rings, the Bennett crest catching the spotlight. "These rings," Rachel said sharply, "link us to Project Gemini, a program my father ran to exploit kids like us." Sarah, her voice trembling but growing stronger, added, "I was Emily, taken from Hudson Valley Children's Home. Rachel's my twin, Olivia. We were separated for his sick experiments." The crowd murmured, cameras flashing. Richard, cornered, signaled a technician in the control booth, a nervous man named Greg he'd bribed to cut the broadcast. "Do it now," Richard hissed into an earpiece. Greg fumbled, but Noah's backup feed, streaming through an encrypted server, kept the truth airing. Noah grinned, his voice low. "Nice try, Richard." On stage, Michael projected documents onto a massive screen. Emails authorizing Gemini, microfilms detailing twin selection, Linda Carter's testimony about sating Sarah. The crowd's shock grew, whispers turning to outrage. Rachel, her lawyer's precision cutting through, explained, Richard used orphans to groom corporate heirs, hiding his crimes by closing the foster home. Sarah stepped forward, her fear giving way to courage. "I'm just a kid from Saugerties," she said, her voice ringing out, "but I'm not invisible anymore. Richard tried to silence me, vandalism, bugs, even planting drugs at my school. But my family, Linda, James, Emma, Mr. Torres, and my sister, Rachel, stood with me." Her words, raw and honest, struck a chord, the crowd erupting in applause. A reporter shouted, "Is this true, Mr. Bennett?" Richard, sweating, stammered, "Lies, they're disgruntled." But the evidence was undeniable, his empire crumbling under the spotlight. Michael, his voice heavy, took the mic. "I was part of this family's legacy," he said, "but no more. I renounce my inheritance. I'm founding the Emily Foundation to support foster kids, starting with Sarah's community in Catskill." The crowd roared, but Sarah noticed a man in a dark suit slip out, his face hard, a hint of Richard's allies, ready to retaliate. Rachel caught her eye, her voice low. "We'll deal with them later." The broadcast, now viral, trended across social media. Hashtags like Project Gemini and Justice for Emily spiking. Noah, monitoring the feed, fist pumped. "We did it," he said, his voice triumphant. Richard, his face ashen, was escorted off stage by security, his denials drowned by boos. Sarah, Rachel, and Michael stood together, the ruby rings a symbol of their victory. Sarah's speech lingered in the air, her journey from an overlooked teen to a hero resonating with the audience. Backstage, Linda and James, watching via live stream, hugged, their pride palpable. Emma Davis, Sarah's 14-year-old best friend, texted from Saugerties, "You're a freaking legend." Mr. Daniel Torres, her shop teacher, nodded at his screen, his mentorship validated. As the crowd dispersed, reporters swarmed, but Rachel, ever the strategist, guided Sarah and Michael to a private room. "This isn't over," she said, her voice cautious. "Richard's network, those partners Noah found, they're still out there." Sarah nodded, her resolve unbroken. The confrontation had exposed Richard, but the shadows of his allies loomed. Michael, his redemption sealed, vowed, "We'll keep fighting." The Emily Foundation, born in that moment, was Sarah's legacy too. A beacon for kids like her, the Catskill Community Hub, where their fight began, awaited their return, a symbol of hope as they braced for the fallout of Richard's empire unraveling. The Catskill Community Hub at 439 Main Street, Catskill, New York, glowed with new life on a bright December morning in 2025. Fresh paint coated the walls, and the scent of sawdust mingled with coffee as volunteers bustled, transforming the space into a beacon of hope. Sarah Johnson, a 14-year-old black freshman, stood in the hub's garage, her ruby ring catching the sunlight as she guided a 12-year-old named Malik through a carburetor repair. The hub, funded by Richard Bennett's seized assets after his arrest following the One Pen One press conference, now housed James Carter's expanded auto shop and Linda Carter's community library. Sarah's heart swelled with pride, but the weight of their victory and the lingering threat of Richard's allies kept her vigilant. Rachel Kim, her twin, was in Virginia, pushing legal reforms, while Michael Bennett's Emily Foundation fueled the hub's mission. Yet a shadow loomed, a reminder that their fight wasn't over. In a Virginia federal court at 401 Courthouse Square, Alexandria, Richard Bennett faced charges for child exploitation and fraud. Handcuffed, his once imposing figure seemed diminished, his empire dismantled by Sarah, Rachel, and their team. Rachel, a 28-year-old lawyer, stood in the courtroom, her voice steady as she presented evidence to ensure foster care protections. "No child should endure what we did," she said firmly, her eyes meeting the judges. Back in Catskill, Sarah watched the trial's live stream with Linda, her 45-year-old adoptive mother, whose quiet strength anchored her. "He's gone for good, right?" Sarah asked, her voice hopeful but cautious. Linda hugged her, her tone warm. "He's locked up, baby. You did that." Sarah smiled, but the memory of the man in the dark suit slipping out of the press conference nagged at her. Hub's garage buzzed with kids, many from foster homes, learning mechanics under Sarah's guidance. Malik, a shy boy with a knack for engines, tightened a bolt, his grin wide. "Miss Sarah, I fixed it," he said excitedly, his pride mirroring Sarah's when she'd repaired Michael's Mustang on New York 32. She ruffled his hair, her voice encouraging. "You're a natural, Malik. Keep at it." His success, a spark of the hub's impact, warmed her, but her thoughts drifted to Emma Davis, her best friend, who was cheering at a Saugerties High game, and Noah Lee, the journalist who was digging into Richard's network. The community's support, from James to Daniel Torres, her shop teacher, felt like armor against the dangers still out there. That afternoon, trouble struck. A burly man, Carl, a loyalist of Richard, loitered outside the hub, his eyes fixed on Sarah as she taught. Said by Richard's shadowy partners, he aimed to intimidate her, his presence a chilling echo of the NY-32 car incident. As Sarah handed Malik a wrench, Carl stepped closer, his voice low and menacing. "You think you're safe, kid? Bennett's got friends." Sarah froze, her heart racing. But Daniel Torres, the 35-year-old shop teacher, appeared, his stance protective. "Back off," Daniel said sharply, his voice steady. "You're on camera, and I don't play games." Carl, spotting the hub's security system, installed by James after the garage vandalism, retreated, his threat diffused. Sarah exhaled, her voice shaky. "Thanks, Mr. Torres." He nodded, his tone reassuring. "Your family, Sarah. We've got you." Inside, James, Sarah's 40-year-old uncle, checked the camera footage, his jaw tight. "That guy's tied to Richard's crew," he said gruffly, calling Noah for a lead. Noah, in Brooklyn, texted back, "On it." Found a name in Richard's emails, possible network. The hint of a larger threat, first raised in the hub's planning room, grew sharper, but Sarah focused on the kids. Malik's repaired engine roared to life, drawing cheers, and Sarah's smile returned. "This is why we fought," she said softly, her resolve firm. Linda, shelving books in the library, overheard and beamed, her pride in Sarah boundless. Rachel, back from Virginia, joined Sarah at the hub that evening, her legal reforms gaining traction. "New laws are coming," she said confidently, her arm around Sarah. "No more Project Geminis." Michael, via video call, shared the Emily Foundation's first grant, his voice earnest. "It's for the hub, Sarah, for kids like Malik. The team's unity, forged in their fight, now rebuilt lives, but the loyalists' visit lingered." Sarah confided in Rachel, her voice quiet. "They're still out there, aren't they?" Rachel nodded, her tone serious. "Yeah, but we're stronger." Emma, bursting in with her cheerleader energy, added, "And don't forget me, we're like unstoppable." Her humor lightened the mood, grounding Sarah in her community. The hub's opening ceremony that weekend drew a crowd, with Malik proudly showing his engine to visitors. Sarah, standing beside James and Linda, felt her journey, from an overlooked teen to a leader, come full circle. Yet Noah's warning about Richard's network echoed, a new threat on the horizon. As Sarah taught another kid, her ruby ring gleamed, a symbol of her past and her strength. The hub, a testament to justice, was just the start. Rachel's reforms, Michael's foundation, and Sarah's teaching wove a new future, but the fight wasn't done. A cryptic email, soon to reach Noah, would spark their next battle, one Sarah was ready to face, with her family by her side. The Catskill Community Hub at 439 Main Street, Catskill, New York, thrummed with energy on a snowy January afternoon in 2026. Sarah Johnson, a 14-year-old black freshman, stood at a podium in the hub's packed auditorium, her ruby ring glinting under the lights. The Silver Promise Initiative, her vision to support foster kids nationwide, was launching today, funded by Michael Bennett's Emily Foundation and Richard Bennett's seized assets. The hub, with James Carter's garage and Linda Carter's library, buzzed with kids like Malik, whose engine repair had sparked hope. Sarah's journey, from fixing a Mustang on New York 32 to exposing Project Gemini, had led here. But the Loyalists' threat at the hub and Noah Lee's warnings about Richard's network kept her alert. As she prepared to speak, her heart swelled with pride, tempered by vigilance for what lay ahead. In a virtual meeting space, Rachel Kim, Sarah's 28-year-old twin and a lawyer, joined via video, her sharp eyes warm with pride. Michael, now fully committed to the foundation, sat beside Sarah, his redemption complete. Noah Lee, the 28-year-old journalist, monitored his laptop, his investigative instincts sharp after uncovering Richard's partners. Emma Davis, Sarah's 14-year-old best friend, bounced in the front row, her cheerleader energy infectious. Linda and James, Sarah's adoptive mother and uncle, stood nearby, their love a steady anchor. Daniel Torres, her shop teacher, clapped from the sidelines, his mentorship a quiet strength. Sarah took a deep breath, her voice steady as she began, "I was Emily, a foster kid who felt invisible. Today, the Silver Promise Initiative makes sure no kid feels that way again." The crowd erupted, her words resonating with American dreams of second chances. Sarah's speech wove her story, orphaned, adopted, targeted by Richard, reunited with Rachel, into a call for change. "We're building hubs like this across the country," she said earnestly, "with mechanics, libraries, and safe spaces." Malik, now 13, stood up, his voice proud. "Miss Sarah taught me to fix cars, and now I'm helping others." His success, a testament to the hub's impact, drew cheers. But Sarah's mind flickered to the dangers. Noah's recent findings, emails hinting at a broader conspiracy, loomed large. As applause faded, Noah's phone pinged, his face tightening. He leaned toward Rachel, his voice low. "Got an email from Jacob Hayes. Claims he's a third sibling from Gemini." Sarah overheard, her heart skipping, but she kept her focus, her resolve firm. In the virtual meeting, Rachel's team intercepted a cryptic threat sent to Sarah's hub email. "Gemini's not done. Watch your back." Signed only the network, it was traced to a burner account linked to Richard's allies. Rachel, her lawyer's precision kicking in, forwarded it to her contacts, her voice calm but urgent. "We'll track it," she said, glancing at Sarah. "You're safe, but we need to move fast." Sarah nodded, her voice quiet. Another sibling and more threats. "It's not over, is it?" Rachel shook her head, her tone fierce. "No, but we've faced worse." Michael, his voice steady, added, "The foundation's got resources. We'll protect the kids and find this Jacob." Their unity, forged in the fight against Richard, now faced a new battle. Back at the hub, Emma pulled Sarah aside, her voice playful but sincere. "You're like a superhero, but don't go all serious on me, okay?" Sarah laughed, her tension easing, her voice warm. "Deal, but you're my sidekick." James, checking the hub security cameras, grunted approvingly. "No one's getting past us," he said, his protective streak unwavering. Linda, shelving books nearby, overheard and smiled, her voice soft. "You've changed the world, Sarah." The moment grounded Sarah, her Black identity woven into the community's love, James's resilience, Linda's care, Emma's loyalty. Yet Noah's discovery gnawed at her. A third sibling? The idea stirred memories of Hudson Valley Children's Home, her past as Emily resurfacing. Noah shared the email with the team, his voice cautious. "Jacob says he was tested, like you two, then hidden. He's got proof. Documents, maybe." Rachel, analyzing the threat, noted, "The network's bold, targeting us now. They're scared of what we're building." Sarah, clutching her ring, reflected on her journey. "I was scared on 9/32, she said softly. "But every step, fixing that car, finding you, Rachel, exposing Richard, made me stronger. If Jacob's real, we'll find him." Her balance of hope and vigilance shone, a testament to her growth. Michael, inspired, vowed, "We'll expand the initiative, keep kids safe from this network." A launch ended with a community feast, kids and families celebrating. Malik showed off his tools, Emma led a cheer, and Torres shared repair tips. Sarah, watching, felt her purpose solidify, but the cliffhanger loomed. Noah's laptop held Jacob's email, a potential ally or trap, and the network's threat promised retaliation. Rachel, back in New York, mobilized her legal team, her voice determined, "We'll trace this network. Protect Sarah." As Sarah walked home with Linda, her ring heavy with meaning, she glanced at the stars, her voice resolute. "We've got work to do." The hub, a symbol of victory, stood ready for the next fight, and Sarah, no longer invisible, braced for a conspiracy that could reshape her future.